My name is Emily Carter. I'm 32 years old. And 3 weeks ago, I learned that the man I had been dating for 9 months had been living in a version of our relationship that only benefited him. I met Daniel Brooks last January on a dating app. He was 31. Worked in marketing. Had this calm, thoughtful way of speaking that made people lean in without realizing it. He loved hiking, old movies, Thai food, and pretending he didn't care about reality shows, even though he always knew the contestants' names by episode 2. At first, everything felt easy. By March, I believed we were exclusive. Not assumed. Believed. Because we had talked about it, he spent weekends at my place. I met his friends. Him at mine. We cooked together. Planned a fall trip. And had those late-night conversations that make you think someone is slowly becoming part of your future. But around July, Daniel started changing. His replies got shorter. His excuses got smoother. He canceled plans at the last minute, saying work was draining him or he needed space to clear his head. And because I cared about him, I tried to be understanding. The breaking point came on a Saturday. We were supposed to have dinner at my apartment before going to a little Italian restaurant he loved. I had bought wine, changed 3 times, and even lit the candle he once said made my place feel like home. At 5 o'clock, he texted. He wasn't feeling well. I stared at the message longer than I should have, then typed back that I understood. At 9, my friend Marcus sent me a photo. Daniel, at a downtown bar, with Vanessa Reed, his ex-girlfriend. She was leaning close, laughing, her hand resting on his chest, like it belonged there. Marcus wrote, "Isn't this your boyfriend?" I called Daniel. He answered on the 4th ring. Music pulsed behind his voice. "Hey," he said. "Too cheerful for a sick man. Who are you with right now?" Silence. Then, "What do you mean?" "I mean Marcus just sent me a picture of you at Hendrix with Vanessa." Another pause. "Emily, I can explain." "I'm not asking for an explanation. I'm asking why you lied." He sighed. "Like I was being difficult. She's just someone from my past. She's your ex. We ran into each other. You canceled on me because you said you were sick. You're being paranoid. I have a photo." Daniel. Then, his voice changed. Not guilty. Annoyed. "Fina. Vanessa and I have been talking again." My fingers went cold around the phone. "Talking. Seeing each other sometimes. While dating me. We're not married. Emily. We're exclusive. You needed that label. I never said I'd stop caring about other people." I felt something in me crack quietly. "So, I'm your girlfriend when it's convenient. You're someone I've been spending time with." The sentence landed harder than shouting would have. I whispered, "Does Vanessa know about me?" "That's none of your business." "It absolutely is." Then he said it, calmly, cruelly. "You act like I owe you loyalty." "I don't." I hung up. For almost an hour, I sat on my couch, staring at the candle still burning on the table. Then I blocked his number, blocked him everywhere, and tried to accept that 9 months of my life had been real to me, but optional to him. The next day, Marcus helped me find Vanessa's public profile. That was when the betrayal became uglier. Daniel wasn't just casually reconnecting with his ex. Vanessa had been posting him for months. Soft smiles. Weekend trips. Captions like "my safe place" and "second chances are real." Second chances, while I was unknowingly living inside his first lie. A week later, Vanessa posted a photo of an engagement ring. The caption read, "I said yes." Daniel was tagged. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. He had gone from denying loyalty to promising forever in 7 days. And suddenly, I knew Vanessa deserved to know exactly what kind of man had put that ring on her finger. For 2 days, I tried convincing myself to let it go. I told myself Daniel was no longer my problem, that whatever happened between him and Vanessa was their business now, but every time I remembered his voice saying, "You act like I owe you loyalty," I felt that same knot tighten in my stomach. Because this wasn't just about me. Vanessa was about to marry a man who had spent months telling two women different versions of the truth. And whether she knew it or not, she deserved a chance to make her decision with all the facts. Late Thursday night, I created a new social media account. I stared at the blank message box for almost 20 minutes. Then I typed, "Hi Vanessa. You don't know me, but I think you should know that Daniel and I were in a relationship until a little over a week ago. We were together for 9 months. He told me we were exclusive. I only discovered your relationship recently. I have proof, if you'd like to see it." My finger hovered over the send button. Then I pressed it. Immediately, my heart started racing. Part of me felt guilty. Another part felt relieved. For the first time since everything happened, I wasn't carrying the truth alone. To make sure she wouldn't think I was lying, I attached screenshots. Messages where Daniel called me babe. Photos of us together with dates. Reservations we'd made. Conversations about future plans. Even the final call, where he'd admitted he was seeing Vanessa. After sending everything, I logged out. Then I went to bed expecting nothing. The next morning, there was still no response. Neither the morning after that, nor the evening. I assumed she had ignored me. Maybe she thought I was a jealous ex. Maybe Daniel had already convinced her I was crazy. Honestly, I didn't blame her. If a stranger had messaged me a month earlier with those claims, I probably would have questioned it too. Then, on Sunday afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. The voice on the other end was shaking. "What did you do?" "Daniel." His anger hit me before I could respond. "What are you talking about?" "You contacted Vanessa." The truth contacted Vanessa. His breathing grew heavier. She called off the engagement. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I said quietly, "Because she found out you were lying. You destroyed everything." The accusation almost made me laugh. Destroyed everything. As if I had created the situation. As if he hadn't spent months juggling 2 relationships. "You destroyed it the moment you decided honesty wasn't necessary. You had no right." "I had every right." His voice cracked, not with sadness, with desperation. "You don't understand." "Then explain." Silence. For several seconds, all I heard was breathing. Then he said something unexpected. "I loved both of you." I closed my eyes. There it was. The excuse. The justification. The thing people say when they don't want to admit they're selfish. You don't get to call deception love. It wasn't that simple. It never is. Another silence. Then his voice became colder. "Vanessa won't even talk to me. Maybe because she's questioning everything. She was supposed to marry me. You were supposed to be honest." His breath trembled. For the first time since we'd met, Daniel sounded afraid. Not guilty. Afraid. And somehow that frightened me more. Because fear meant consequences were finally catching up to him. "You ruined my future." "No." I stood by my apartment window, watching rain gather on the glass. "You ruined your own future. I just stopped helping you hide it." Then I hung up, and blocked that number too. Afterward, I expected relief. Instead, I felt exhausted. Like I had just finished a fight I never wanted. Days passed. Then a week. No calls. No message. No surprises. Work became easier to focus on. I started sleeping better. Marcus joked that I was finally returning to the land of the living. And for the first time in months, I almost believed the story was over. Almost. Because sometimes silence isn't peace. Sometimes silence is just the moment before another storm arrives. A little over 2 weeks later, I was sitting on my couch reading, when someone began pounding on my apartment door. Not knocking. Pounding. The sound echoed through the hallway. I glanced at the clock. "Enaist 7:47 p.m." My stomach tightened immediately. Nobody visits at midnight with good news. The pounding came again. Harder. I approached cautiously, looked through the peephole, and froze. Daniel stood outside. His face was pale. His clothes were soaked from rain. His eyes were bloodshot. He looked nothing like the confident man who had accused me of ruining his future. He looked terrified. I opened the door only a few inches. "What are you doing here?" His voice cracked. "Emily. Please." I had never heard him sound like that before. Not once. Not even during our breakup. Not even after losing his engagement. He looked over his shoulder toward the dark hallway. Then back at me. And what he said next made every warning alarm in my head go off. "I need your help." For several seconds, I simply stared at him. 2 weeks earlier, Daniel had told me he didn't owe me loyalty. Now, he stood outside my apartment, looking like a man running from a fire. Rainwater dripped from his jacket onto the hallway floor. His hands were shaking, not dramatically, not for effect. Genuinely shaking. "What happened?" I asked. His eyes darted toward the elevator again. "Can I come inside?" Every instinct told me to close the door, to tell him this was no longer my problem. But there was something in his expression I couldn't ignore. Fear. Real fear. Against my better judgment. I stepped aside. He entered quickly. The moment the door locked behind him, he exhaled, as if he'd been holding his breath for hours. I stayed near the entrance, keeping distance, keeping boundaries. "What happened?" Daniel sat heavily on the couch. For a moment he didn't answer. Then he rubbed both hands over his face. "It's Vanessa." My stomach tightened. "What about her?" "She's been following me." I blinked. "What?" He laughed bitterly. "A broken sound. I know how that sounds." "No." "Explain." He pulled out his phone, opened a folder, dozens of screenshots, hundreds of messages, missed calls, emails, social media accounts. Many of them created only hours apart. Some were pleading. Others were furious. Several made my skin crawl. "If I can't have you, nobody will. You embarrassed me. You destroyed everything. You owe me. You owe me. You owe me." The phrase repeated again and again, like an obsession. I felt a chill move through me. "How long has this been happening?" His jaw tightened. "Longer than I admitted." Something about that answer immediately bothered me. "How much longer?" Daniel looked away. "Months." I stared at him. "Months." He nodded slowly. "Before the engagement." The room went silent. And suddenly, pieces that never fit together began shifting into place. I remembered the sudden engagement. The strange urgency. The way everything had happened so quickly. "Daniel." My voice became very quiet. "Are you telling me Vanessa was acting like this before she proposed?" He didn't answer immediately. That was answer enough? Oh my God. He closed his eyes. At first it wasn't obvious. Wasn't obvious. She wanted to know where I was constantly. His voice sounded tired. She'd get upset if I spent time with friends. She'd call repeatedly if I didn't answer right away. She'd show up unexpectedly. "And you still proposed?" His laugh was hollow. "I thought things would calm down." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You thought marriage would fix it?" "No." His shoulders slumped. "I thought commitment would make her feel secure." The irony nearly took my breath away. Commitment. From a man who had been secretly dating 2 women. You don't get to use that word. His face flinched. Good. For once. He deserved discomfort. Then another realization hit me. A worse one. "Wait." I folded my arms. "Is that why you kept seeing me?" His eyes widened slightly. The hesitation lasted less than a second. But I saw it. And that second told me everything. "Daniel." His silence felt louder than shouting. Finally he whispered. "Partly." The word hit harder than I expected. Partly. Not entirely. Not accidentally. Partly. I laughed once. A short, disbelieving sound. "You used me." "No. You absolutely did." "Emily." "It wasn't like that." "Then tell me what it was like." His voice cracked. "When I was with you, everything felt normal." I stared at him. "When I was with you, I felt safe." The confession only made me angrier. "Do you hear yourself?" He looked down. "You don't get to make me responsible for your feelings." "I know." "No. I don't think you do." Months. Months of deception. Months of letting me build a future around a lie. And now I was learning another layer underneath it. While I thought I was in a relationship, I had actually become someone's escape hatch, someone's backup plan, someone's emotional shelter. Without my knowledge, without my consent, a wave of anger rolled through me. What if she'd discovered us sooner? Daniel didn't answer. What if she came after me? Still nothing. What if your choices had put me in danger? His face tightened. I didn't think. Exactly. My voice echoed through the apartment. You didn't think. The same excuse. Over and over. You didn't think before lying. You didn't think before cheating. You didn't think before involving me in whatever this was. He sat quietly, unable to argue, because he knew I was right. For several moments neither of us spoke. Then, he reached into his pocket and pulled out another phone. A cheap, prepaid device. Miss Domak, sank. What's that? One of the numbers she's been using. He opened several messages. The newest one had arrived less than 30 minutes earlier. I know where you are. Another followed. You always run to her. My blood went cold. I looked at Daniel. Slowly, carefully. What does that mean? His face lost color. The silence lasted too long. Far too long. Then he whispered. I think she knows about you. The room suddenly felt smaller. Much smaller. Every instinct inside me screamed. Because this wasn't just his problem anymore. Not if Vanessa knew who I was. Not if she knew where I lived. Not if she had spent months spiraling into obsession. I walked toward the window, pulled the curtain aside. The parking lot below was mostly empty. A few scattered cars. A flickering street lamp. Nothing unusual. But for the first time that night, I felt genuinely uneasy. Daniel stood. You don't understand how bad this has gotten. I turned toward him. Then help me understand. His face tightened. And when he spoke next, I realized the truth was even worse than I thought. Because Vanessa hadn't just been sending messages. According to Daniel, she had already appeared outside his workplace. Outside his apartment. And once, outside mine. For a moment, I thought I had misheard him. Outside my apartment. Daniel nodded. The blood drained from my face. When, a few days ago, my stomach twisted. You saw her? No. Then how do you know it was her? He swallowed. My neighbor's security camera. He opened his phone again. A grainy video appeared on the screen. A woman stood across the street from my building. Watching. Not walking. Not passing by. Watching. The timestamp was from 3 nights earlier. Just after 10 o'clock. I felt a chill spread through my chest. The woman eventually turned and walked away. The image quality wasn't perfect, but it was clear enough. Vanessa. I sat down slowly, trying to process everything. Part of me wanted to scream at Daniel. Part of me wanted him out of my apartment immediately. But another part understood something uncomfortable, whether I liked it or not. I was already involved. Not because of my choices, because of theirs. Have you gone to the police? Daniel nodded. Yesterday. And they took a report. He looked exhausted. They said they need more evidence before they can do much. I stared at the messages again. The hundreds of calls. The fake accounts. The threats. The obsession. Then I looked at him. The man who had broken my trust. The man who had lied repeatedly. The man whose selfish decisions had dragged me into a situation I never asked for. And yet, fear was written all over his face. Real fear. Not manipulation. Not performance. Fear. Do your friends know? A few? What about your family? He laughed bitterly. They warned me about Vanessa months ago. Of course they had. The people closest to him had probably seen things he ignored, or refused to see. Because acknowledging reality would have required making difficult choices. Choices he'd avoided, until everything exploded. I rubbed my temples. A headache was beginning to form. What exactly do you want from me? His eyes met mine. Nothing. I didn't believe him. He noticed immediately. I mean it. His voice softened. I don't need money. I don't need a place to stay. Then why are you here? For the first time, all night. He looked ashamed. Not angry. Not defensive. Ashamed. I needed to warn you. That answer caught me off guard. He continued. If she really knows where you live, You deserve to know. Silence settled between us. I hated how complicated that made things. Because a selfish person can still do one decent thing, and a decent action doesn't erase years of selfish choices. Both can be true. Eventually I stood. You should leave. Pain flashed across his face, but he nodded. I know. He moved toward the door, then stopped. Emily. I didn't answer immediately. What? His eyes looked older somehow. Like the last few weeks had aged him years. I'm sorry. I laughed softly. Not because it was funny. Because it was sad. Sorry. Such a small word for such a large wreckage. He lowered his head, then left. The door closed behind him, and for the first time in months, I felt absolutely certain about something, whatever happened next. I was done carrying responsibility for Daniel's choices. The following morning, I contacted the police myself. I gave them everything. Screenshots, dates, message, the security footage, my own statement. The detective handling the case listened carefully, then asked a question I wasn't expecting. Did he ever mention previous incidents? What kind of incidents? Other relationships? My stomach tightened. The detective exchanged a look with his partner, then explained, Vanessa had a history. Not a criminal record. Not exactly. But multiple reports. Former partners who described obsessive behavior, harassment, monitoring, repeated unwanted contact after breakups. Most complaints never became charges because evidence was limited. But the pattern existed, and patterns matter. Over the next several weeks, more information surfaced. Friends spoke up. Former boyfriends spoke up. Even coworkers shared stories. The picture became clearer. Vanessa wasn't simply heartbroken. She was spiraling. And Daniel, despite all his flaws, hadn't imagined it. At the same time, another truth emerged. Daniel hadn't been an innocent victim either. He had ignored warning signs, lied repeatedly, used people instead of confronting difficult realities. His choices had helped create the chaos surrounding him. Both truths existed side by side. Vanessa's behavior was wrong. Daniel's behavior was wrong. One didn't cancel out the other. Months later, a protective order was granted. The harassment finally slowed, then stopped. Daniel moved to another city for a fresh start. Vanessa entered court-mandated treatment after violating several legal restrictions. And me, I focused on rebuilding my own life. Some days were easier than others. Trust, once broken, doesn't magically repair itself, but gradually the anger faded. Not into forgiveness, into understanding. Understanding that people often create disasters by avoiding uncomfortable truths. Daniel avoided the truth about what commitment means. Vanessa avoided the truth about her own behavior, and eventually, reality caught both of them. As for me, I learned something I hadn't fully understood before. Boundaries are not cruelty. Walking away is not selfish. Refusing to rescue someone from consequences they created is not a lack of compassion. You can care about another person's safety while refusing to become responsible for their life. Those things are not contradictions. They're wisdom. The strangest part of everything is that I still don't know whether Daniel ever truly loved me. Maybe he did. Maybe I was simply a safe harbor during a storm he didn't know how to navigate. Maybe it was both. At this point, it doesn't matter. Because love without honesty eventually becomes something else. Something smaller. Something weaker. Something that cannot survive reality. The last message I ever received from Daniel arrived 6 months later. Just one sentence. No request. No explanation. No attempt to reconnect. Only this. You taught me that loyalty isn't something people owe after things get complicated. It's something they choose before they do. I read it once, then deleted it. Not out of anger, out of closure. Some chapters don't need another response. They simply need an ending. And that was mine.